What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, man. I hope you guys are having a great week. Today is day one, or episode one, the first installment, whatever you'd like to call it, of the highs and lows of each NFL division. Today we're starting with the NFC East. The next episode will be AFC East, and so on and so forth, back and forth between each NFL division. Basically what today's video is going to be about is breaking down each team in each division, giving you a synopsis of what they have been, then giving you a high end, what the best possible scenario for that team can be, and what the low end, the worst possible scenario for that team can be. Like I said, today we are starting with the NFC East, so let's go ahead and get started with the team in that division that most people don't like, or if you're a fan of them, they're the only team you like, the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys is pretty much in a Super Bowl or bust season. They have a lot of questions surrounding their quarterback and star wide receiver about when, where, and how much the extension will be if they end up being extended, and have a lot of hype going on, especially regarding some comments that Jerry Jones said at the end of the season about going all in. They haven't really gone all in. In fact, they haven't really gone in at all. They haven't extended Dak Prescott to any number of contract at all. They haven't extended CeeDee Lamb at all. And if I'm them, I would extend them before they get their hands on the Justin Jefferson contract, because that's going to be even higher and set the market to a place where they might not be comfortable extending CeeDee Lamb. They also have quite a few holes in their offense and defense that have not been filled yet, because some players have been too rich for their liking. Some players have not fit what they wanted. There have been plenty of rumors and different things that have happened that we have heard over the offseason. The Dallas Cowboys refuse to sign any other players to go all in. Now, with that being said, they obviously have talent to make the playoffs. They obviously have talent to win the division. They obviously have enough talent to get to a Super Bowl, but they continuously lose in the first round. So let's talk about the high end for this Cowboys team. The high end is winning that Super Bowl, getting over the hump, getting over the mental hump, getting over everything that they can to warrant Jerry Jones extending Dak Prescott and extending CeeDee Lamb and filling some holes around them. Feels like they're in a prove-it year to their owner. Obviously, without extending Dak and extending CD, we don't know at this point whether or not they're going to do that, but it feels like they are heading into at least training camp with an extension not being done. The high end is obviously a Super Bowl win. We know they have the talent. We know they can make the playoffs. They just lose in the first round. High end, best possibility is what this high end is winning a Super Bowl. The low end is not pretty for the Dallas Cowboys. The low end could be anything from not making the playoffs to having an injury to one of their star players. But we're not talking about injuries. The low end is what is the lowest point for this team that we could see. The low end is having Dak Prescott have another season like we saw where he led the league in interceptions. Having CeeDee Lamb not have a good season as well, maybe deals with some drops and different things like that. And ultimately not making the playoffs. In an NFC conference that is very top-end heavy and does not have a lot of talent towards the end of it. They're obviously in a battle with the Eagles. If they have a bounce back here, we'll get to them in just a second. Pretty much a shoe-in for a playoff spot in this conference. So the low end for them is losing in the first round again. We'll talk about their other counterpart in the NFC East, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are trying to bounce back from a year where they were not too happy with the way it ended, obviously getting bounced in the first round by a Buccaneers team who no one really thought was going to make the playoffs, let alone get a couple of wins in there. They're very similar to the Cowboys in the sense that it's Super Bowl or bust for this team. The GM, Howie Roseman, has spent a lot of time and money trying to get this roster to where it is at this point, and it's pretty much Super Bowl or bust. But where they differ from the Cowboys is they've actually made it to the pinnacle. They just faced the back-to-back champions in the Kansas City Chiefs, and they battled those guys. They played really well. It just came down to a few mental errors from Jalen Hurts and some of the other guys on defense, and that led to them losing. They were very close to winning that Super Bowl. And so unlike the Cowboys, they have made it past the first round. They have made it to the NFC Conference Championship, and they have made it to the Super Bowl. They just lost due to a couple plays in the Super Bowl, but how they are the same is it's Super Bowl or bust in Philadelphia. Let's talk about the high end for this Philadelphia Eagles team. High end is very simple. It's winning the Super Bowl. It's everything going right. It's Saquon Barkley being a key addition that they had in the offseason, really making a case for Offensive Player of the Year. It's Jalen Hurts kind of returning to form rather than he was last year, getting back healthy, making a push for MVP. It's A.J. Brown having a really good receiving season. It's Devontae Smith having a really good receiving the season after both of those guys have been extended. Low end for this team is fairly simple too. It'd be a first round exit. The GM, like we mentioned, has done really well at building the roster, trading for the right pieces, extending the right pieces. He even did so well in the draft, covering the holes that they needed to get with Cooper DeJean and a couple other key defensive pieces. So having another first round exit would be absolutely detrimental to this Eagles team. It would cause a lot of questions and a lot of what happened in this role. Obviously, they made two key changes at the offensive and defensive coordinator position, bringing in Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore, especially after adding those pieces on the from the draft on the defense, signing someone like Saquon Barkley from an interdivision rival. It's going to be very heartbreaking if they lose in the first round. I personally don't think that'll happen. I'm a big Jalen Hurts fan. I think he's going to be very well in this league, going to be very good in this league. And so I don't think that's going to happen. And I ultimately have them winning the division over the Cowboys. But obviously, you never know until you know. Let's talk about the last two teams. We'll keep it kind of short and sweet for these two teams. The Commanders. The Commanders are on a very different path than the top two teams in this division. They obviously drafted their hopeful franchise quarterback, foreseeable future, in Jaden Daniels, the Heisman winner. A nice wide receiver room to really help him get over that rookie hump and help him feel more comfortable in an offense that he is still learning. They also have a pretty decent couple of running backs there, and with new head coach Dan Quinn putting his defensive scheme that we've seen work for multiple teams in the past, adding someone with the offensive coordinator like Kingsbury, who we've saw someone do a lot with younger and more athletic quarterbacks on the run throws, different things like that. He did very well with Kyler Murray, even though it ended on a bit of a sour note. I think this is a really good position for Jaden Daniels to be in, and I ultimately don't think they make the playoffs, but I think the high end for this team is 9 wins, a positive win record for the first year under Dan Quinn and the first year for the hopeful franchise quarterback in Jaden Daniels. This guy has real potential to be a really high-level quarterback in this league with his athleticism, with his arm talent. One of his biggest things, though, is not being able to stop taking those nasty hits that we saw him take in college. He's going to have to learn that very quickly. We've seen guys who are much bigger than him, like Anthony Richards, be able to play well, but they can't stop getting hurt. We saw that happen last year with Richardson, and so he's going to have to be able to learn very quickly not to take those hits. The low end for this team is just really, really bad football play. We don't see Jaden Daniels play well at all. We see a lot of mistakes on the defensive end, especially with a coach like Dan Quinn, who is going to be focused on that defense. That is what he's the best at. We have seen so many good defenses from this guy. We see a lot of mental mistakes from their defense. We see a lot of mental mistakes from their rookie quarterback. A lot of drop balls from that wide receiver core, who we know have some studs on it. They're just not playing well. Clearly, the chemistry is off, and they don't make the playoffs, and they get something like 3-4 wins like they did last year. I think that's the complete bottom level for that team. Obviously, they probably won't make the playoffs in this division like we mentioned, so the high end for them is getting a positive win record, about 9 wins. And then obviously the low end is being like 3, maybe even 2 to 3 wins for this team. I think would be just a terrible kind of mental breaking start for this new era for the Washington Commanders. And finally, the last team who I really have no hope for, the New York Giants. The New York Giants elected to take a wide receiver instead of quarterback, which means they're now sticking with Daniel Jones for the future. Daniel Jones being the quarterback, we have pretty much 2 years to look at. 2 years ago, the guy who won a playoff game. This year, the guy who was hurt, and when he was healthy did not play well at all. So we're going to have to see what Daniel Jones we get. Obviously, even in the year he won the playoff game, a lot of people were not impressed. But we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. It's hard to win in the playoffs, and so if you win a game, you get a little bit more respect. Then, like we mentioned last year, just battled with a bunch of really serious injuries. I believe he had a concussion, obviously tore his ACL. Then whenever he was playing early on in the season, did not have a good season whatsoever. But they did elect to take a playmaking wide receiver in Malik Neighbors out of LSU. So hopefully for their sake, that will make Daniel Jones just a little bit better, a little bit more comfortable throwing on the outside. They obviously lost Saquon Barkley to the Eagles. That's going to hurt anytime you lose a big player like that, especially when it's in division. So that's going to hurt them a lot. They don't really have a big run game. They did trade for Brian Burns from the Carolina Panthers, so that should help their defense, pairing him with Kayvon Thibodeau. So they have some pieces there, one piece on offense. If you want to count Jalen Hyatt as someone who might have potential, you could say you have 2 pieces on offense, 2 pieces on defense. You'll have to see what happens for that quarterback spot. Maybe we see Daniel Jones kind of put his foot back on the gas and become a better quarterback, become more of the quarterback we saw 2 years ago. But for me, the high end for this team, Daniel Jones shows what he did throughout the whole season what he saw in that playoff game versus the Vikings. We see that all year. We see him play really high-level football. We see someone like Jalen Hyatt take a really big step forward. He's a very speedy guy, so a lot of people had high hopes for him. He didn't have the best season last year, so hopefully we see him take a step forward. We see someone like Malik Neighbors come out with a hot start, really fast, catching a lot of deep balls, making some highlight plays, using his speed and athleticism to come out and really show, yeah, I was deserving of this high of a pick. And then the low end is kind of what we saw last year. Really bad, battled some injuries. Even when they were quote unquote healthy, didn't really play their best football. It looked sloppy, looked really just nasty football. And, come back around April, we are back in the top of the draft searching for that next franchise quarterback, because if this season doesn't work out, I believe Daniel Jones is not going to be in a Giants uniform. They signed him to a 2-year I believe it was a 4-year contract for like $140 million, but they have an option to get him out of that after year 2, which this is year 2 coming up. So I don't think we see Daniel Jones if everything goes to the low end for the Giants, which is very possible. They don't have a lot of players that can make a lot of plays. We're kind of relying on Daniel Jones to step up and be a top 15 kind of quarterback play, which is really hard for him to do. It's going to be really hard for him to do. He needs to be at least in that 10 to 15 range for the Giants to, 1, keep him on board, and 2, have a chance to make the playoffs in a tough conference. A tough division where you're probably not going to have 3 people coming out of that to the playoffs, and then it's very top heavy in the NFC regardless. And so, yeah, I don't think it's going to be very pretty for the Giants, but the high end would be, like I said, a lot of good play from all of those pieces that they have hope in, that they've traded for. The low end is just it all going downhill very quickly. And so let me know what you guys think, man. We are doing this for the next 8 days. You guys are going to be seeing the NFC East first, the AFC East, and we'll go back and forth from there. I hope you guys enjoy the first episode of this. I hope you guys are looking forward to the rest of them. I know I am. It takes a lot of writing to do these. It takes a lot of research to do these. But let me know what you guys think. If you're a fan of one of these teams, what you think the high end and low end of each of these are, where you think I'm wrong, where you think I'm right. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit the like button. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.